groom your beards, polish your pistol, crank your crossbow, and for once, those last two aren't an innuendo. No, for the dwarves are coming, finally, Old World fans. The Dawi are returning. The Dwarfen Mountain Holds are going up for pre-order this coming Saturday. So, let's look at the news, let's see what miniatures we can expect, and how the new system is going to play. So, yesterday's edition of the Old World Almanac, yesterday being the 15th of July, talks about the Dwarfen Mountain Holds and how they play in battle, with details on what miniatures we can expect in the pre-order that is coming up in just a few days' time. So, let's, as we always do, go through the article, look at the good stuff, think about how this might affect the play, and just delve in to the shortest, beardiest folk in the Warhammer world. So, after the furore with Age of Sigmar releasing with what seems to be the only purpose of giving us a brand new Skaven range by the back door, we are back now to the Old World, and just look at these. Look at the beards, look at the cannon and the pistols. Oh yes. So, first up then, not only is the pre-order coming, but so is the Arcane Journal, which gives us the additional dwarf lists. Now, interestingly enough, we are not seeing a Slayer army, so apparently that will be possible if you take Ungrim as your lord, because Slayer King, after all, I imagine he's got special rules that change things around a little bit. But we are instead getting the Royal Clan and an expeditionary force, which are going to be interesting because that's dwarves that we've not seen before, and that's something I am a big fan of in Old World at the moment, is looking at new ways to play existing factions who may be at a more of a peak of their powers at this time than maybe they were in the later editions of Fantasy Battle. So just take a moment to drink that in. It's gorgeous. But importantly, at the bottom, the information we've got here is that the Grand Army is designed to be super tanky, because they are stubborn and their shield wall, and between that, heavy cavalry is not going to break them in a hurry. It's going to be just bouncing straight off, and using the two of them, it means that one turn after another you can use each of those features to just, there's no rolling through with heavy cavalry and carrying on and forcing people to flee like you would expect. They just give their ground slowly and steadfastly. Any that survive, and they will survive because they are tough, any of the survivors, or just give a bit of ground, and then the next turn, if they lose again, give a bit of ground, by which point, unless you're pumping more and more units in, the heavy cavalry unit are going to get bogged down, or because traditionally there's fewer in number of them, they're going to get taken out, and the dwarves are going to stand there and laugh upon a pile of horse. So yeah, really, really tanky. And now that we've finally got the clarification on the drilled rule, which means that they can march in column, move, quick, charge, they are the most mobile dwarves of all time. And I made this point online several times, that it felt to me, when everyone was arguing about drilled, is that drilled was designed almost specifically for dwarves to give them a little bit more maneuverability on the battlefield, because everyone was complaining about how they always got bogged down, they got caught up, they didn't necessarily have the firepower to shoot their way out of trouble. But now you can, with your march move, you can't quite match everyone else's, but in terms of what a dwarf army can do, it is a significant improvement, being able to hop into marching column and then charge out of it at the end. That is super, super handy. So yeah, the first point of the dwarves is they're going to be hard to break. They're going to be really tough to get through. I mean, just look at the rule for stubborn and shield wall here. They're essentially the same thing. So you may give ground rather than fall back in good order once per game, and stubborn allows you to fall back in good order rather than actually taking a break test. So it's literally a case of slam, victory, nope, and then all of a sudden they've lost that impetus of the lance charge and the extra strength and the extra AP, and they're fighting with hand weapons, and all of a sudden it's an uneven playing field in the opposite direction. It is a great combination of abilities. So here, though, a bit further down, we talk about the different types of army, and what I'm liking is the sound of the expeditionary army, which seems to be sort of the younger dwarves, the more creative dwarves who aren't so set in their ways, with prototype gyrocopters and squadrons of slayers running after people, the engineers, whereas the Royal Clan's army seems to be the more elite dwarves. So you're going to have more hammerers and longbeards. It's going to be the core house. It's almost going to be like a Space Marines first company army, if you will, with all the veterans being key. And I like that there's two differences there, so that's good. What I don't like, because I'm not a dwarf player, is how resistant to magic they are, making it really hard not just to affect them with spells, but even with things like the Master Rune of Calm here, just a ranged damping field, which makes it harder to cast spells. I don't like it at all. It's very good for the dwarves. It's just I'm not a fan. I sat there as a Bretonnian force or a High Elf force, whichever one I get painted first, and yeah, my mages or my damsels are going to struggle to have as much an impact on the battlefield as perhaps they would. Apparently there's a lot more runes like this. Obviously we look at the Rune of Calm here, and there's the Rune of Hesitation, which they're talking about. Runic tattoos are something I'm interested in that's coming up. So that's for Slayers and Doom Seekers, which is genius. So they get the magic, or the magic runes as a tattoo on their flesh, which I assume is going to be a buff of some kind. Maybe it buffs them a ward, maybe it buffs them extra AP, maybe extra strength, who knows. But it'd be really interesting to see what they do with that, and it once again gives Slayers something that perhaps they lacked, which probably means they're going to be absolutely fucking devastating, but who cares. There's more talk here, and again, you can see that these designers here have been reading the online content that people are putting out about things, saying, oh, need a dragon, can't win without a dragon, and very specifically, dwarves lack dragons. But what's good at killing dragons? Dwarf lords with runic weapons and batteries of cannons. And they're right. It won't take much if you hit them enough times. So it will be really interesting to see. And another thing I like in this article, we're moving down a bit further, we're talking about the slow release rate, and it's been 3 months now, so every 3 months we're getting a new force, and this gaming meta changes every time. And again, I mentioned this online a while ago, looking at the initial tournament results, you saw that Bretonnia and the Tomb Kings were doing very well, and that's because they had their Arcane Journals, and then once the Orcs and Goblins got theirs, all of a sudden they started getting an improvement, and we will see this throughout the release schedule. The Dwarves are going to turn up, and with these new forces, they're going to absolutely jump right up there. I always felt like they should be, and I think a lot of that was down to people misunderstanding the drilled rule, but now that they're going to have their journal, and it's going to give them another sort of greater depth to their armies, there'll be more variety of armies, there'll be more magic items, there'll be more ways to build them, and greater understanding of how they're used. So they are going to suddenly find that they are doing much more in competitions as well. You're going to see them rise up the rankings a lot, and I think that's really good. I'm taking a moment because just look at them. I can't decide if I like the more modern gyrocopters or not. I mean, they're glorious models in the gyro bomber, but I love the old one. It was beautiful. Typically charging the high elves here, those high elf archers are too close to the front line here. Not good at all. They're going to get blown off by those thunderers. Sorry, no, they're going to get blown away by those thunderers. Dwarves are at the right height though, let's be honest. Anyway, yeah, here we are. There's more details. So the expeditionary force is different to a standard Grand Army Dwarf list. It's engineers heavy, so they're much more offensive, quicker moving units, war machines, black powder, experimental gyrocopters, and new runes for ranged weapons, which I think will be wonderful. But again, not wonderful if you're not a dwarf player. All of this is making me want to get some dwarves, but as you can see, I've still got to finish the Bretonia box. I'm just painting some archers at the moment, so they need to get done. Then I wanted to play high elves, and then if I go to dwarves after high elves, am I a traitor to Ulthuan? Maybe, but also who cares? Look at them, they're great. So this Engineers Guild army, I like it. It's not your classic group of dwarves defending a hold. It's a business venture, as they're suggesting here. So lots of miners. There's rules for mine carts, which is great. Lots of explosives in them. Said lots of things like the scout gyrocopters, great for harassing people, but not so great for dropping bombs or shooting. It's not a gunship, as they say here, but it is quick, so really good for getting the war machines. So yeah, a really interesting army, and I'd be really interested to play something like that, I think. But then having said that, just look at this. Look at this royal clan. You've got a dwarf king, you've got an anvil of doom, you've got absolutely no gunpowder whatsoever. It is all quarrelers and longbeards and hammerers and grudge throwers and bolt throwers and just classic set in their ways, long beardy dwarves, beautifully done. I don't think it's the army for me, but I do admire how it looks. Yeah, no newfangled contraptions, lots and lots of runes. Extra runes probably means that you can make stupid tough dwarf lords. So yeah, absolutely magnificent again, but a very different style of play, and probably not my style of play, I'll be honest. But what I do love is, like they're talking about here, you can build the Royal Clan Warriors from a hammerer's kit using the hand weapons and shield found on the frame. So they're encouraging kit bashing within the sprue, and obviously Games Workshop doesn't like you to go too far outside of its own stuff, not like the old days when they suggested you go and make your own miniatures and bring them into the game. They're long gone, but they are encouraging conversions, and I love that. I think it's important. Part of the hobby is not just playing the game, it is modelling, it is creating, and it is adapting what's there to make it better, to make it suit you. And so finding ways to make new units using content from existing sprues is really cool. I like that, and I like the suggestions. They've made the suggestions in the Bretonia book about how you would reuse some of the men-at-arms or the bowmen, for example, to fit with the armies of infamy, and that's really good. So yeah, quite happy with that. Quite happy that we're using these armies of infamy to get people making and converting and adapting again, because it's a level of skill in the hobby, and it creates some lovely units. They make a point here, so the Royal Clan is the kind of army that long-standing dwarf players might see and think that's my kind of army, whereas the Expeditionary Force is something that other people might consider exciting. And although I am developing a long beard at the moment, I do feel like the Engineers Corps, the more steampunky dwarves, is a really interesting way to go, and I'm possibly excited to give it a try. Yeah, here, as they mentioned, they've not done the Slayer army, which people are expecting, in the same way they didn't do Night Goblins. Apparently it's too obvious, so maybe we're saving them for the future. So yeah, once we've done the cycle of 9 factions, I feel that we'll be looking towards maybe not another edition straight away, but maybe fresh content for them all, and then we can start to see some more of these. But as I say, they do say if you take Ungrim, you can build a Slayer heavy army. So I assume Ungrim's got some rules which make Slayers core, essentially, or something like that, or at least one unit of Slayers core. So here we are as well. So there's loads of awesome things we'd have loved to have done straight out the gate, but some of these armies are so cool and thematic and popular that they warrant taking the time to be done right. And since these Arcane Journals are only going to be 48 pages, there's a big list of things that's not been explored yet. So maybe we will see. The Arcane Journals are a great way because they're an affordable way to build on your army, but maybe we're going to see dedicated books in the future. Maybe if we do more campaign books, we'll see dedicated lists for these bigger armies, for these more lore-heavy, lore-intensive armies, because these are still, at the end of the day, just generic armies, and that's great because you can have a lot of fun with that. But if you've got an army with a lot of history, a formation with a lot of history, like you have with Ungrim, who's a Slayer King, then it'd be really nice to see a book full of the lore again, and with a different list to the main dwarf list completely. I think that'd be really good. But anyway, Saturday is when we want to get your pre-orders in. Get there before 11, I think, as usual. They will sell out. They have always sold out. They've either always underestimated the sheer demand for this stuff, or it's been a case that they've deliberately kept it slim to keep demand high. But if they keep doing that, it's winding me up, because I've never got any money on pre-release day, and I always want to get stuff on an ad hoc basis. So please, Games Workshop, keep a stock on your store, please, so that we can buy as and when we like. But in the meantime, I'm sure you can find a grudge to strike off for this. They weren't in the box, but they're out now. Is that enough to write it off the pages, or do we need more? Let's find out. Let's see what happens in a week's time, and here's to the dwarves. Take care. We'll see you on the next one.